Go ahead and start. All right. Good luck.
Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. This is the first podcast, first episode of Dadaitudes and Platitudes. We've got Mufasa here, I'm Alienated, and then this is Leather Daddy. So we wanted to put this podcast together, wanted to kind of talk about, just what it's like to be a dad in today's society, and then additionally, Mufasa has definitely got some experience with a child born during COVID, same thing with Leather Daddy, and just kind of dealing with the struggles of life as a dad. So that's kind of what this podcast is about, and we're going to talk about hobbies, what we struggled with, what it's like to maintain physical fitness while this may not look like it, but we all go to the gym. So but yeah, we just wanted to put the podcast together. If this helps 5 people, awesome. If it helps 5,000, even better. But again, this is just something for us to do to pass the time and kind of talk about what we've got going on. So,
because let's be real, guys. Being a dad, you got to be the rock of the household. Your partners, they look to you to provide stability, support, and that's tough. It's tough to get in and squeeze time in to take care of you and have you time. And that's what this is all about. Us sharing our experiences of what we do to keep ourselves rolling, keep ourselves happy, and to build the community of dads around us.
Absolutely, and that's one of the main things I'm talking about today is how to be a rock for your family, and what that means as a man to support. So about 4 years ago, my wife and I were trying for a child, and first time we conceived, which is awesome. And about 20 weeks into the pregnancy, Jasmine, my wife, went in for a normal doctor's visit and was immediately rushed to the hospital. And I left work, immediately rushed over, and we were in the hospital for about a month. And we found out that our child was suffering from preeclampsia. My wife was suffering from preeclampsia, and the child was losing blood. So normally when the blood pumps, it just flows through the umbilical cord. My child was stopping, so it stunted her growth, right? So
a quick question, is this
Yeah.
during COVID?
This is during
so
COVID.
You're already dealing with the COVID
Absolutely.
restrictions, so how is that, with going to visits and stuff like that?
Yeah, so a couple of the doctors wouldn't even let me in, which was horrific. Like, nobody should have to go through, yes, this is a joyous occasion, but you shouldn't have to go through news alone, right? So we found a doctor who let us both in during our checkups, which was awesome. She was an amazing doctor. But then during the hospital visit, we were there for a month being monitored. And the hospital, 2 weeks before we got there, allowed husbands in.
Okay.
So I can't imagine the hardship my wife would have gone through if nobody could have been in there with her for a month by herself, right? So yeah, absolutely horrific. So we get in there, and we find out at 20 weeks that she's already extremely small, way smaller than she should be, because she's not getting the blood she needs.
And so let me get this right. This whole time with Mufasa Mama, she was there in the hospital for over a month, not in labor, just stuck there in the hospital?
Stuck there in the hospital. Yep. Her preeclampsia was so bad that she was basically on emergency watch. And what's crazy is when we first got to the hospital, the doctors told us straight up to abort the child. Straight up, they said, came in there, so when are we scheduling this abortion? And I looked at the doctor and I was like, are you joking me? Like, what gives you the right to even approach us like this? This is a hard enough time as it is.
Yeah.
And I told him, don't ever come back into this room again. I said, do not come back in here. I want our doctor in here right now. So our doctor came by, and we told her what happened, and she was like, I can't believe that somebody practicing medicine would come in and talk to you like
Now,
that.
was this in the central area where we all locate? Is that so?
Yep.
Being there right off of 14.
Yep, right off exit 14.
Man, I will tell you that, not to interject, but your story is very similar. There are quite a few. Was this a male?
Yep.
There's quite a few male doctors at this practice that I don't agree with some of the things that they said. I don't agree with some of the things like the way they treat people. Because again, to his point, having a child is the most wonderful time and the most stressful time and the scariest time. You're happy for the possibilities that could be, but you're also scared of what is on the table, because just like your wife was struggling with preeclampsia, mine as well. It was high risk, so his was extremely early. Mine was a couple of weeks early, but along the same lines. And I don't care for some of the things that we said. If you're a doctor watching this, or if anybody has a similar struggle, they need to be able to have the bedside manner to just lock it up. I mean, you're there to support and bring a life into the world, and almost no parent that goes in for a visit for a pregnancy, bringing a child into the world, is ever going to want to have make that decision of do I have to abort?
Right.
And again, this is going to be a little bit more political in that sense, because some people fall left or right depending on. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think all of us are in the same agreement that that's just not an option.
It's regardless of what you think the rest of the world should do. If at any point you found out you're gonna become a parent, you've got your personal choice to make. And all three of us, it really wasn't a choice. We're all dads right here.
Yeah.
I'll get into some of my story in a different segments. So I've got 4 children. My first child was born conceived when I was 17, and it was totally put up to me of, hey, do you want to keep this baby or not? And everyone's got their own choice to make in life. That wasn't even a choice for me.
Yeah, and I think it would be very different if he came up to us and was basically like, hey, this is an option because the likelihood of your child surviving is X, right? But he didn't even take that approach, right? He was just like, yeah, so when are we scheduling this? When are we doing this? And my wife just immediately was just destroyed, right? Because in her head now, the only option is this. And, that's just that doesn't align with our beliefs, right? And so, like I said, I told him to get out. I was like, you absolutely cannot be a part of this decision. So we obviously decided to keep pushing, and our doctor was basically told us, hey, we will keep the baby in as long as Jasmine can recover from however far the preeclampsia gets. So basically, we waited as long as humanly possible where my wife could come back from what happened. So we left from the downstairs and went to the pregnancy area, and we had these nurses that were amazing, right? I'm a spiritual guy. I believe in God. I believe that He sent His Son Jesus to die for us, and these nurses were praying with us, believing with us, and would help us manipulate some of these tests so that the baby could stay in as long as possible. Because basically what we were told is for every 1 or 2 days inside of my wife is about a week in the NICU, right? So every day we could keep her in there was huge. So we had our nurses fighting for us the entire time, and I can't imagine having a better support system than my family, my friends, but these nurses fought for us.
Which, not to cut
you're
him
good.
off,
You're good.
But we all became friends as dads. So this is something that we're not privy to what he went through, and being able to be there to support him. So this is all his pre-existing friends, not even friends that are dads that can even relate to it.
True.
And to get in the meat and potatoes, like he said, he's a very spiritual individual, and that helped him. And I would say that in the NICU, she was what, a $2 million baby?
Yeah. End of the day, it was $2 million.
That's a lot of cheddar for a life. I
Yeah.
mean, and not to sound like we're anything, but that's a lot of money, and that's a big decision. But I
And
can
worth every
imagine
penny. Yep.
worth every penny.
Yeah. So some of the stuff. So I have an awesome support system with my family, right? So while we were in the hospital, obviously they couldn't come see us. Jazzy wasn't even allowed out of the room. My wife wasn't even allowed out of the room, and so we had a corner room because we were there for so long. The nurses were like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna get the good room."
Oh yeah.
Well, let's talk about that room, right? So in the delivery room, or are you talking about just
before
the general
delivery,
stay?
general stay. So
Oh.
there's like a special emergency pregnancy area.
Right.
It's right by the NICU. So we had this corner room, and our parents would sit in the back of their car and eat, and we would look out the window so we could have dinner together, right? Because they couldn't come in and see. And imagine being my wife's mom, who couldn't be there for her daughter during one of the scariest, most stressful times of her life. And all they could do is just be in the parking lot looking at us through the window. So, I have an awesome support system. I'm very fortunate.
His mom, by the way, honorary grandparent for my kids, so
She is the bonus mom to all families.
100%.
I've never met such an angel.
So she, again, very interactive in his daughter's life, and very in tune, became interactive in my daughter's life, and just, I don't think that there is not to step on anyone's grandparents, I don't think there could be a better grandparent, really, because, she just, absolutely, you guys go to the gym, drop them off, we'll make pancakes, we'll do bacon, we'll do breakfast, and my daughter just had a blast.
I'll step on some toes here. Anyone want to set up a grandparent title match? They can try. They ain't gonna
Oh,
be-
she's gonna knock them down, man.
Yeah, my mom's pretty awesome. So, yeah, so the grandparents would do that, right? And about after 3.5 weeks of being in there, my daughter was born at 1 pound.
I never heard that part.
Oof.
1 pound.
Oof.
She was about the size of my hand, and her skin was completely see-through, and it was terrifying.
I can only imagine.
It was
man.
terrifying. I couldn't even touch her. I couldn't hold her. Even when she was in the NICU for about 3 weeks, all we could do is look at her through the glass.
Anyone who's going through something similar right now, my heart goes out for you, because that is rough. When my daughter was born, it was just, I'm going to be honest, my first thought was to just cheat on me, because my baby came out purple. By the way, kids come out purple sometimes.
Come out purple, covered in cottage
I
cheese.
straight up thought, because my wife is white, right? Just some more information about us. And so baby coming out purple just threw me for a loop. So I could not imagine first time seeing my kid and being able to see the muscle structure, to be able to see the bones, to be able to see just the development piece that all happens in the womb, happening outside of the womb. That's...
Yeah, and it was terrifying, right? Because basically the entire time she was in the NICU, again, these jerk doctors were just, oh, she could die any day. Oh, she's probably going to die. The chances of her living are
Pardon my
like
language.
2%, right? And I was like, okay, you can leave. That's fine. And again, I had this one nurse. Her name was Janet. And she was amazing. Every day she made sure she got Luna and prayed with her and stayed with her and gave her special attention. We still invite all of these nurses to all of my child's birthday parties.
Oh, were any of them there here this year?
No, they couldn't come. They were out of town this year, but they said they're coming next year.
Okay.
I can't wait to meet them.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And hey, real quick, guys, if there's some personal information that gets volunteered in this podcast, be respectful. Like, and I'm not saying that we have a huge following, because by no means is this podcast like starting off with 100,000 followers. But let's be honest, guys. Let's respect privacy, and let's just, if there's any personal information that's volunteered during this, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Don't try to find Mufasa. Don't try to find Leather Daddy. Don't try to find me. We'll be present during the podcast. We'll have our own social media page for the podcast. But just leave it alone. He doesn't need this. He doesn't need it. I don't need it. This is something we're doing to help share our experiences with what we've had going on and how we've dealt with it, how we built support structures and things like that. Because he started off with a good support structure. I didn't. I don't know about you.
And I left all of my support structure behind when I moved states.
But, you know, I moved to Panama City when my daughter was a year and a couple of months. And we had to build a whole new support structure outside of the grandparents that were active. Because I love my mother and father, but there just unfortunately just wasn't super ecstatic, and it was hard to get involved, especially with COVID. So when we moved states, we had to build a whole support structure, and then when we moved back, again, same thing. We had to leave the support structure we built and build again, which thankfully enough, my wife met his wife and started hanging out, and then met his wife. And then we all got forced into a family barbecue, and we were like, "Man,"
as they call it, the mandate.
Yeah, the mandate,
and it was love at first mandate.
Absolutely. So, to caveat off real quick, not to detract away from the story because it is good, but I do want this first podcast to be really informative and really kind of introduce us. We're all kind of anime nerds, some more than others. Obviously, Mr. Mufasa over here is the one that got both of us into cigars and into Magic the Gathering. So, that's what we do now to bond and hang out on top of going to the gym. He was already going. He got him going together. And then I was going prior to with my wife. But, between work structure and stay-at-home mom life and balancing a kid, we were able to finally start putting together all 3 workouts. So.
Yep. A core tenet of just one of my mental sentences I tell myself. Even when I'm feeling bad, I've never left the gym feeling worse. Mentally, that is. Not physically.
I mean, we did that the other night.
I have walked out after leg day like wobbling like a
newborn baby giraffe.
Yeah, so
and
definitely felt worse physically, but mentally,
and
always felt
not
at least
even
the
just
same.
the gym thing. It's just getting together with like-minded men, right? It's so important.
If you're a solo dad right now, you lone wolf in it. You think that I'm an island. I don't need anybody. You have so many thoughts racing through your head, and this is to make some assumption to you, but you have so many different things, emotions, things that you feel like you may not be able to say to your wife, or things that may just pop up, and you got to have a support team to be able to talk about it. I can't say thank you enough to Mufasa and Leather Daddy over here, because prior to them, my childhood friend, a couple of them, one of them lives 2 hours away from me. The other one lives in a different state and is now in the Army. And, it's just one of those things where you have to discover a tribe. You have to put together, because when you go to a birthday party and you have no idea who anybody is,
Yep.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
More than likely, you're sitting there in a corner, not talking to anybody. The first time I met these two, I didn't say shit to them. Again, part of my language, guys. This is not a family-friendly podcast. I did mark that
for dads.
I did mark it on YouTube that it is not a friendly family podcast. So there's going to be some cursing. Obviously, we're drinking and we're smoking. But, you have to find that group.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, there's going to be some tricks of the trade and some tools that I'm going to refer to. I'm a big, huge nerd reader. There's a lot of
Tricks of the trade.
Tricks of the
you
trade.
go and work on us right now?
Yes, because I read a lot of books. I've read so many books, and two of them I love to reference. I'm pretty sure you've read one of them, Christian. So, The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That goes a long way to interacting not just with your significant other, but your children as well. Mm-hmm. The other one, and it's the one I apply more frequently, is How to Make Friends and Influence People. And the core sentence of that one is, put yourself out there, break the ice. You got to do it.
So not to go off on a work tangent, but have you guys read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willett?
No.
It is a really good book, especially because you're kind of middle management, because you manage projects and you have some people above you, some people below you. You're definitely middle to senior management, being that you control a branch.
Yep.
For your job, and then I'm a senior manager at my job. It is really good read. It's a great book, talks about that. The other thing is, did you guys go to a daddy boot camp? Or is that just me?
Is that the one at the hospital?
Yeah, man!
I went to one class. It
was only a one Saturday thing for me. It was like a 4-hour where I got to meet other dads that had like 18 months to 36-month kids, and they taught you how to be a dad, how to change a diaper, what kind of snacks to look out for, what kind of toys are acceptable.
I went to one when I was, 18 or 19. I was the only guy there.
Yeah. So interesting enough, when I did it my daughter was born in 2020. Sorry guys, brain lag. I did mine in the end of 2019, and it was nothing but dads. So it was really good to kind of get that hands-on experience. They gave you a workbook too to, read with your partner, interact with your baby in the womb, things like that. Just very interaction-based with your family to be. And so I definitely, if you're expecting and you've got one on the way and you haven't done one, I definitely recommend it if the hospital that you're near offers it. It definitely helps starting off for me, at least. But caveating back to your $2 million baby, sir.
Yeah.
Move it back around.
So, after the baby was born, again, we had 3 weeks where we couldn't even touch her. And then we were finally able to put our finger in there so she could grab our finger, right? And I'm going to be honest, I could not connect with her.
It's hard.
Because imagine you're preparing yourself for the worst and hoping for the best, right?
Were you closed off? Is that...
Yeah, for sure. Because I had to be. Because my wife needed me to support us, right? And so if I emoted, right? If I showed weakness in that moment, it would have fueled her emotions.
For all you Fortnite players, that means like actually caring and showing
and not doing a dance.
Yeah, not doing a dance.
Yeah, still putting the team on your back.
I mean,
but not hitting.
So and that's one of the hardships is right. As a man, during any form of hardship, it is your job to support the family first. Then, after the hardship, you can do what you have to do to cope, right? But we are responsible for the health of our homes, right? Whether that's whether that's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you're responsible for the health of your home.
So, kind of talking about being closed off. Maybe it was different from you you had multiples, right? So I again struggled very similarly, not maybe to the extent that he did, especially considering his situation. But if you're a dad, don't expect an immediate connection.
Some people get it.
Some people do.
Some people don't.
Some people don't. I will tell you that what I learned through raising my daughter to where she is, she's almost 4, and talking with my wife, is your spouse that's growing the baby has 9 months to connect with an organism growing there.
Pure connection.
Pure connection.
And for you dads,
It starts day one.
Yeah, one day there's no baby there. Next day there's a baby there. What do I do?
Day before, you're running to get Ben and Jerry's, or you're going to get pickles,
Like
or
a
some
normal
sort
Tuesday.
of weird craving that you just adopted over 9 months. And then the next day, you've got to figure out how to care for this thing that poops, that cries, that just wants to be held.
And even more on that is some people lose their wives, right? Some women don't know how to be a mother and a wife, right? And so some men end up gaining a baby and losing a spouse.
Postpartum is a thing.
Yeah.
It's very heavily preached at these daddy boot camps. That just as much as you've got to care for a new life that came in, you have to look after your wife. I don't know if anyone struggles with postpartum. My wife has a little bit of depression starting off. And then you add the mixture of unregulated hormones.
Yep.
Guys, you have to look after your spouse. You absolutely have to, because if you don't, you could very well see the person you love just disassociate from being a family, disassociate from being a mom. If you start hearing things like, you should be better off without me, or I should have never had a baby because I don't have a connection.
Seek help.
That is not her talking.
Yeah.
That is not your partner talking. That is 100% unregulated emotion, unregulated hormone talking about, hey, I'm in trouble and I need help.
Barring abnormal physical bodily injury, birthing a baby is the most physically traumatic thing your wife can go through. And there's all of that physical change results in a lot of mental change. And you got to be there to watch out for it, to be the cold eyes on the scene. And this is not something you have to fix on your own. You seek help.
Yeah.
You likely won't be able to fix it on your own.
Not to squirrel real quick, but I realized Leather Daddy's wearing a Demon Slayer hat.
Yep.
Fuck you, Tom Chabot.
Nice.
So again, we're about to hit a midway point where we're going to have to stop recording, then restart recording. This podcast is meant to help you if you're going through it. This podcast is meant to help kind of give you, one, entertainment, and two, just talk about, things that happen, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is not about us. This is about you and what you can take away from it.
absolutely. I don't think there's anything special or abnormal about me. I can't speak to Mufasa or Leather Daddy. I mean, maybe they got something packing in the pants that we just don't fucking know. But, and pardon my language, is going to get sloppy as I drink, and I'm going to drink. But, I mean, this is just for y'all. This is raw dads having raw talks about what it was like.
And I feel like, the only thing we have to offer is the realizations that we came across going through it, right? And it's the realizations that are personal. So if our personal help or our personal realizations can help somebody, awesome. But it's not going to necessarily work for everybody. But, take it where it's coming from. Take it from a place of wanting to help. Cool.
All right,
So pause.
we're going to pause and then reset the camera and start again.
All right.
Alright guys, so we're back from our first break. Pardon some technical difficulties, we're re-recording segment 2. So we were talking about connecting with babies, right? And so kind of talking about it. Again, there's going to be some stuff that we're going to kind of gloss over just because we did cover it in the original take. But this is all new to us, so we're all learning. So talking about it, connecting.
Yeah, so for me, again, my child was in a box for 3 weeks and I couldn't even touch her, right? And so I finally got the opportunity where we get to put our hands in there and have her grip our finger, right? And we were so excited. And so I did it, and I had zero connection to her. And honestly, it broke my heart.
By the way, babies come purple, sometimes. Just a heads up, my baby came out purple. And so I had, that initial thought that races through your mind. My wife is white. So, just to kind of give a little bit more backstory into who we are. Seeing a purple baby at first can be super nerve-wracking. Babies come purple at times.
Yeah, so it's just really hard not to connect, right? Because I feel like we're told and expected that, oh, when you have this baby, that's it. You'll feel the connection instantly. And it was not the case for me. It was a very hard realization.
For a lot of guys, that's not the case. Women, they have the entire pregnancy. They're hardwired to that baby.
Mm-hmm.
They feel the baby kick. They feel all that. For us dads, hey, it's Tuesday. Go to Kroger, pick up mustard because that's the craving of the week. Wednesday, bam, there's a baby here.
Hold up, back up. Did you say mustard was the craving of the week?
Man, mustard, pickles,
Was she
whatever.
putting mustard on like vanilla bean ice cream?
Man, a leather mommy, she didn't crave mustard, but I've heard stories about it. Like there was this one wife I heard of. She went to sleep with mustard in the bed and would just chugging it at night.
By the way, queso, not okay.
No bueno.
No bueno. So, if you're a dad who's just gotten someone on the path of pregnancy, pardon my shake. I'm a little cold. We went inside for a minute. My body's trying to readjust. Queso is not okay. So don't bring up Mexican. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. But going back to it, to the connection, right? You're, like Leather Daddy said, you're going to struggle. It's going to be a struggle bus.
Yeah.
They've got 9 months to develop it. You get day one.
Mm-hmm.
Day one, you get to start trying to develop that connection that honestly may not be there at first. You have to develop it just like the wife did or the partner that carried the baby.
Yeah, and it was even harder for us in this situation because I was guarded, right? I had to support my family. I had to have this detachment from the situation, not from the child, but from the situation, right? Because my wife was so volatile during that time. She was depressed because of the whole postpartum thing. The child was having a really hard time just surviving. We were told day by day that she might die. And so I had that burden on top of me. And then going in with that of, okay, let me try to connect with this human being who realistically could die at any moment, who developed a lung disease while she was in there, and what am I supposed to do? So I go in there with the expectation of connecting, right? And I put my hand in there, and and she grasped my hand, and there was this moment of, oh, this is cool, but then it was also oh my gosh, I don't feel this love towards her, almost an obligation. And it's a really scary thought, right? Because you want to connect with your child. It's a part of you, right? They're a part of who you are. And you're half of their DNA, right? And this missing item that I thought would just come naturally, because I feel like that's what we're told, right?
100%.
I feel like we're told, oh, you'll just get this connection. And I've talked to a lot of dads about it because I was really struggling with it. And believe it or not, most dads, like Joe said, develop their connection. It's not an instantaneous thing like it is for the mom. And I literally, on my phone, I have a search history of am I a horrible person for not being able to connect with my child, right? But again, I had no group of fathers to talk to, right? I had my dad, who's an awesome dad, always has been, and I kind of talked to him about it, but my peers didn't have kids yet. My friend group didn't have kids yet, and so what do I do? Am I horrible for this? And I can tell you, you're not. It is a development thing that you have to go through, and it's worth the investment. It's worth the investment in your child. It's worth the investment in your spouse.
And communication with your spouse is important, but that's possibly one of those ones that you got to tiptoe through, because
Absolutely. You can't tell your spouse.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know that baby that you made? Yeah, I don't really like it right now.
Oh, man.
So,
I can just imagine the kick in the nuts that'll happen after that.
so talking about it off air, right? So in between takes, we were talking about like what we did with our first, right? Because Leather Daddy over here has 4.
Count
Not 1,
4.
not 2, but 4. So, talking about it, we were talking about like baby bouncers and stuff, and not to bring up his stuff, but it's okay to do things while you're rocking a baby to sleep. I played Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the Xbox in my game room, man cave, living space, as you will. We lived in a multi-generational home, so we had 3 rooms that were ours, bedroom, common space for me and my wife, and then the daughter's room.
Back in the day, I played League of Legends while bouncing my kid. Season 1 of that, back in the day. You know, we had a conversation earlier about the various, we're getting up there in age back in the, like, you know, the other yesterday could have been 1 to 7 days ago.
That was me and you at the gym this morning.
The other day could it be anywhere from 7 days ago to the past 5 years, and then back in the day is anything older than 5 years.
Back in the day, in my time, I walked uphill to school with snow both ways, 5 miles.
And then back in my day, that's the oldest. That's when the speaker was a kid.
So going back to it, I mean, it's okay to not have that connection at first.
Yeah.
You're gonna struggle. You're a new
It took me a
dad.
long time. Honestly, like real talk, it took me a long time.
Let's talk about the emotion that nobody ever wants to talk about. When your kid isn't listening to you. The instinctual, like, I'm going to yeet you through a window.
Punch you into
It
the sun.
happens. You're not a bad person for thinking, like, I don't want to deal with this. Let's just get the problem away. Not saying your kid's a problem by any means, but your kid's going to go through trials and tribulations. You're going to be a handful. And it's okay to be a dad or okay to be a mom. And feel that, like, I just can't. I can't deal.
It's okay to be a person and feel frustration.
Yes.
Seek your partner, seek your friends, seek your individuals that help you as your village.
Yep.
Tell them you need a break. It's okay to take a break. My wife, for a solid 8 months, when I would come home, would disappear until the kid went to bed. Not because she didn't like the kid. She had 12 hours with the kid. For roles that are reversed or anything like that, I mean, you've got a partner that gets a solid portion of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to accept it. And it's just part of being an individual.
So during that time, did you feel like you kind of lost your wife for a bit? Because...
No.
No? So what did y'all do to mend that, to bridge that from happening?
Date your wife.
Yeah.
You date your partner. So when the kid goes to bed, guess what you do? You curl up, you watch TV, you play games, you play a board game. You cook dinner together. You do something that includes both of you.
Yeah.
One of the most common things, common traps a couple can fall into is roommate syndrome, where you fall into just being roommates. And it's most likely to happen in those years when after the baby's born.
The first 2 years. First 2 years.
Sets the tone.
Sets the tone for your entire relationship. Date your spouse.
Yeah.
Spend time with them. Connect with them. Just be there with them.
Yeah. And I like, for me, we put Luna to bed, or my child to bed pretty early, right? Like, we tried for about 7, no later than 8, so that we would get at least 2 to 3 hours a night together.
Absolutely. Right? So her friend from Florida came up, and this was when my daughter was about 18 months, and it changed the game. We started putting our daughter to bed at 7:30, so we would have 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours, depending on when you go to bed.
Yeah.
I sleep on average about 5 hours and 20 minutes a night.
Insane.
Seriously, it bothers the ever-living piss out of me. Today I'm running off of 5 hours and 19 minutes. I got up at 5 a.m. to my kid saying, "Daddy, my stomach hurts." Well, yeah, dude, you're hungry at 5 a.m. because you didn't eat yesterday. But coming back to it, like dating your spouse and spending that time with them, you know, a rule that me and my wife adopted is 2-2-2. Every 2 weeks, go on a date. Every 2 months, go on a trip, just you and your spouse. And every 2 years, go on a vacation with just you and your spouse. And I'm not saying that's the golden rule for everyone, but it helped me and mine.
So on that, I have an interesting question because my wife and I do a like a mission trip once a year where I go and build libraries in South Africa, right? And we take sometimes a separate holiday, a separate vacation, right? So that we can also build our individual interest and individual, like, I trust my wife. I know she would never do anything to hurt me. And because of that trust, I'm like, go have fun, go do something, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, that's really weird that you let your wife go out. And I was like, it's not a let my wife do anything. I encourage it. I'm excited by it. She's a person. Go let her do stuff.
I mean, you're going to sit there and tell me as a dad, as a guy, you're going to be hankering to want to go on a guy's trip, to go fishing, to go hunting, and you're not going to want your wife, your partner, to go on a girl's trip, on something that she needs. If you need it, she needs it too.
Yep. And as long as you have mutual respect for each other, I'm not worried about my wife going clubbing. You know what I mean? Going dancing with a bunch of guys who she doesn't know.
Even if she did. Even if
I'm
she
not worried
went.
about it.
Like, you have to have that level of trust in your partner that know, like, oh, look, my wife who's behind the camera in the living room, right? Like, I know my wife would never do anything to harm me. And I would never do anything to harm her. And so if it's a different scenario, again, if the roles are reversed or whatever the case is, like, you have
I'd want her to trust me.
100%. Your relationship is built off of trust.
It's built off of trust. It's built off communicating clear expectations.
Yep.
100%. You
can't
have
read
to
your
talk
mind.
about it. You have to explain. You have to be vulnerable. If you're a dude who's an island, I mean, in our brief, 3 months of knowing each other, I feel like these are individuals that are going to be brothers for life. They're family. His mother is an honorary grandparent for my kid. And my daughter absolutely loves their children. Absolutely. Like, they're, regardless of any kind of falling out. Again, coming back to his point, malintent. If you know it's not coming from malintent, there should be no falling out. You should be able to talk it through.
Yep.
You should be able to clearly communicate expectations. You should be able to clearly communicate boundaries. Whatever boundaries you expect or your spouse expects should be reasonable.
Yeah.
And you bring them up, and that's that. And if you can't have trust after that, then you need to take a look and see where a deeper problem might lie.
Right.
100%.
I'm gonna say this a lot. Be a man. Speak your mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna one up him. I'm gonna say be an individual
Yeah.
because, again, you know, I don't know who's watching this. If this speaks to some, you know, individual that's not a dad or not a male, and you watch it because it's just something entertaining for you, be an individual. Communicate. I don't know what's going on with Mufasa over here if he doesn't tell me. I can't read his mind. I can read maybe his social cues if I've been around him long enough. But I'll tell you right now, this guy has some RBF. Leather Daddy over here, again, same thing. Like, I don't know what's going on in your brain. You have to tell me. So as an individual, you have to understand that there are people. I'm sorry, my telekinesis is not that strong.
I don't know. Mine's pretty good.
Is it?
I was wishing for nachos.
God, that sounds good.
Hey,
Hold on, we're gonna go order some nachos real quick.
Taco Bell is open to 2 a.m. Taco Bell, shout out if you want to sponsor. But kind of going back to it, that connection piece, I know there's a lot that you still have left to unpack with, you know, having your daughter during the midst of COVID.
Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing, because I don't want to drag on the thing too much, but basically what it boils down to is I had a amazing community of family, people I go to church with, friends who all supported me during this time. And even through all of that, even with that support, right, I still had to be the man in the family. I still had to take on the burden of my wife's emotions and feelings and put mine aside for a time being, right? And that's it for any form of tragedy. As a man, it's our job to do that. And
I'm gonna challenge you as an individual that cares for someone, regardless of male, female, if you're in a Apache attack helicopter, whatever you want to identify as. If you care for somebody, there's a level of selflessness that you have to check your emotions.
yeah,
As we'll get into later podcasts down the road, like there are times where your emotion doesn't matter in the situation. You have to address the fact that your partner is feeling some sort of way based off of what you said or how you feel.
and a real thing is selfishness leads to isolation, right? You need to be selfless. Go after, because if you surround yourself with other people who are selfless, guess what they're going to do? They're going to build you up. They're going to support you. I know that if I was in the trenches at 3 a.m. and life was just crapping on me and I called these guys, 100% they would answer. They would be there for me.
I might have to call an Uber because Alienated likes his whiskey.
But they would be there for me, right? And so if you surround yourself with people who are, again, like-minded, who want to better you because they love you, right? Like, I know these guys love me. I love them, and I'll do whatever it takes to build them up as much as I can, right?
And it's not an issue if you're a man to say that you love another man.
Absolutely not.
By no means, because I think every single one of us have long-standing friends that we say that with. Mm-hmm. Even you, who may be isolated, who may be that mountain, who may be that island, right? That lone wolf out there. You have someone who is like a brother to you. I can almost promise you, you have that individual, and you love them, and it's okay to say it.
Absolutely.
It's okay to love because love is a universal thing that all people seek. Don't be shy about it.
And need.
And need.
And need. You need somebody to love you. You need somebody to support you. And you know what love is also? Telling you when you've messed up. Hey, Joe, you did this. You messed up. Let's try to fix it. Let's try to build it up.
I don't know if I said it in part one, but there's going to be some personal information that's thrown around.
Shoot.
Don't try to find Mufasa. Don't try to find me, and don't try to find Leather Daddy. Right? This podcast is not built around me as an individual. This podcast is meant for three dads expressing what they had,
Because it's
what
about
they
you.
went through.
Yeah.
This is to help you and to give us some sort of semblance of giving back to our community, because at any given point, I guarantee you, Mufasa, Leather Daddy, Alienated, we all experienced something that came from our community.
Yeah.
And so if our community reaches 10 people, awesome. If it reaches 10,000 people, even better. But at the end of the day, we're not here to make a buck. None of us are, in a position where we absolutely need this. Right? This is just something we want to do to give back to other dads that may be struggling with the same stuff that we went through.
Yeah.
Dads
Or just other people.
Dads are expected to be the rock. Here's the other half of that goes unsaid. Even the biggest rock, when it's alone, erodes when it's in the river of life.
100%.
Yep. And if you don't have people who can help,
Dad approved.
dad approved.
Dad,
That's going to be our catchphrase from now on. When we say something that just hits home, it's going to be Dad approved. Not to cut you off.
No, you're good. No, and I'm at the point, so my daughter is 3.5 right now, and most of my friends still don't have children yet, right? But I met these guys, and having that support system of people who understand what you're going through, right? And people you can talk to, because there's some stuff that I go through I can't talk to my wife about. And it's not because she's not able to handle it. It's because I can't necessarily burden her with some of the things I deal with.
Or even relate.
Right.
there's going to be struggles as an individual, especially if you're a dad. Again, this podcast is centered around dads. But this is not exclusive to just dads.
Yeah.
There's going to be stuff that you go through that you can't express with your partner.
The burden of the head of the household is a unique one.
Yeah.
You got to balance work and life. And sometimes that's not a conversation that your spouse can relate to.
But even then, that doesn't stop you from trying. Have the conversation. Communicate with your spouse. So let them know what you're going through. Not to caveat, but I, in this time of coldness, my work is very seasonality, right? So kind of slower at work. I watched Jurassic World while in the background while I was doing all my work and stuff like that. It made me sad of when I was a child, and I communicated that to my wife. I was like, hey, I'm struggling today. Because it's one of those things where, like, you grew up on something, and to see that it's now to an end, to see that, you know, shout out to Universal Studios, but you made a Jurassic World. I grew up on the T-Rex ride. And now it's, you know, I went to Universal Studios, yeah, I had a lot of fun. I waited in a shit ton of lines for a lot of time. But, I mean, it's one of those things that as you progress through life, you're going to notice things that, you know, relate back to your childhood. And you're going to have some of that comes up. But to Leather Daddy's point and Mufasa's point, you have to be able to communicate that.
Yeah.
Even if they don't understand, my wife was super supportive. My wife was like, baby, is there anything I can do for you? No, it's a me issue. But having that partner, having that individual that can sit there and relate to you and take care of you and look after your mental health is imperative.
And also having the wisdom of knowing when you can talk about a certain subject, right? There are times when you may need to relay something, but you can't relay it to your spouse yet because the emotional backlash they might not be able to take yet, right? And I think that's, again, something not, you know, people say, oh, they want a man who's emotionally intelligent, who can talk through things, who can, right? But sometimes that burden that you're placing on somebody, they're not ready to take yet. And that's so hard, right?
But I will also say that there is some misjudgment there.
Oh, yeah, there definitely can be.
100% talk about it. Your partner will communicate if they can help or not. I think your wife does it, my wife does it, and I would say that your wife does it. If you bring up an issue that your wife or your partner can't handle or can't assist you with, they'll make it known. But you have to talk.
And sometimes it helps to talk to your buddies first, right? Talk to your men, your like-minded.
Dad approved.
Dad approved. Talk to your like-minded men first.
And it could be something as simple as, you know, like a minor issue I've had lately. I have to travel for work occasionally. You know, the holidays are tough.
Occasionally? What?
It's been a lot lately.
It's been a lot lately. We've only got like a couple of minutes left in this episode 1, but to unpack the little bit of Leather Daddy's schedule, man's traveled for about 75% of the holiday season, and I can just, as somebody who values his presence, is horseshit.
Yeah.
All right,
so sometimes maybe I'm gonna wait one more day before I tell Leather Mama, oh, I gotta go out to Texas for a week.
Hey man, you're giving too much information away. No, but guys, that's our time for podcast number 1. So we're gonna try to shoot for weekly uploads. Mufasa shared his story with, you know, the baby in NICU, $2 million baby going through COVID. Okay, this is something that is meant for you. So if you have something you want us to talk about and contemplate on, by all means, leave comments in the comment section. And reach out. I don't think all 3 of us have access to the page. All 3 of us have an ability to respond to you. And none of us are selfish in that manner. Like, oh, I'm not going to answer you. We're gonna reply. We're gonna take care of our people that follow us. And again, if this even offered an ounce of hope, an ounce of help, an ounce of, man, they were funny to watch, then thank you.
Because that's what this is about. This
Yeah.
isn't about us. This is about you.
Yep. So key takeaways. Communicate expectations.
Date your partner.
Date your partner. Have a group of people that you can relate with and grow with. Right? You're not supposed to be alone. We're not meant to be alone.
And then how do you find those people? Get out there and break the ice.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Cheese ball.
Cheese ball. Is that our sign off? We're gonna do cheese balls as our sign off? All right, guys. Again, that's been a podcast episode 1. Thank you again for tuning in, and we're gonna go ahead and roll into podcast number 2. So if you want to stick around for the next one, absolutely, we'd love to have you. Again, it's been Alienated. Mufasa.
Mother daddy. Later,
Peace
Dad
out,
dudes.
Tiger Scouts. Alrighty.